Hello, friends. Welcome again. This is Nicholas. And on this channel, I speak about realities and human experiences, especially human existential and perennial situation. I try to bring biblical passages most times to, put it in context of human lived experiences. We call it the human document, and how these things affect and what we can learn from the Bible. Because very recently, what I have seen is that there seems to be an intentional modern deviation from the Bible, and the Bible is a living word. The word of the Lord is a lamp for our steps. It remains the very, very sword that we will use to conquer our battles. And last time I made a video where I was considering the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians. I had taken my bearing from chapter 6, verse 12, and I placed this in the context of the Moroccan versus the Senegal AFCON final, the one I spoke extensively on that. And today I want to also speak on that again, look at it from a very distinctive part of the Bible, right? In that particular chapter, Paul says something that is often, I think is often quoted, but rarely confronted honestly, because people usually try to use this to their own gain. And he said, "For we struggle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of the dark world." I want you to notice the order, the ordinance. It begins with the rulers and authorities before the language becomes cosmic or spiritual. It is political, it is structural, it is social. This means something quite uncomfortable. Now, the greatest battle most people will ever fight, I'll say it again, the greatest battle you and I will ever fight in our lives are not against invisible enemies. Oh, the witches, the village people, the ancestral spirits. No, the greatest battle you and I will ever fight are against the systems, the oppressive systems and authorities that govern our lives badly. The forces that most shape our quality of life, that most shape your quality of life, they are not metaphysical abstraction. They are the rulers, the policies, the institutions, and the power structure that determine the security, the opportunity, the dignity, and the peace of the land. And this is precisely where a certain kind of Christianity becomes dangerous. And that is one of the demerits of the radical, unexuberated boomerang of what we have today as Pentecostalism. Because there are ministries today in Christian fold, in Christendom, that is obsessed with casting and binding witches and wizard. They are obsessed with village enemies and spiritual paranoia. They intentionally skip over rulers and authorities, intentionally. And they rush straight into the dark world. Why? Because fear is profitable. Fear makes you to be, fear paralyzes you. It takes away the best moment that you have. And fear keeps people distracted. It keeps people passive, dependent. Fear is a very dangerous thing to the human element. And that was why in Mark 4, when the storm rose against the disciples, Jesus told them, "Calm down, relax. Peace be still. Do not be afraid, for I am with you." Okay? So fear has a way, fear externalizes blame and protects those in power from accountability. So it is very easy, my dear friends, right, to tell people their enemy is their aunt. Tell them that their enemy is, than to tell them that their enemies is the bad governance. It's very easy to tell them that their enemies is their uncle in the village, rather than telling them that their enemies is this guy in political office signing dangerous bills that knows not what he's doing in that office, that is not even supposed to be there in the first place. So it is easier to blame the witches and wizards than to confront corruption that we have in Nigeria, in the world today, where we are globally connected but culturally fragmented. We are globally connected, but we are ideologically diverged. So it is easier to spiritualize poverty than to interrogate the colonial legacy, the neocolonial economics, and the extractive capitalism and political capture that we have today in the world. So St. Paul is not naive. Let's not forget, St. Paul was born in Turkey, in Tarsus. So technically speaking, it was a citizen of two countries, of Turkey, and became Roman because, of course, Roman was like the center of the world at the time. So he was not naive. He's not denying the spiritual dimension of evil. He is insisting that spiritual evil operates through structures. Because spirits are non-material beings. They need a being to operate by and with. They need to exploit through rulers, through authorities who abuse power, through systems that keep people in perpetual fear, perpetual poverty, perpetual dependency. So your enemy, my dear friends, is not probably your village people. No. Your enemy is more likely bad leadership that have failed to give you good roads, that have failed to give you good waters to drink, that have failed to provide anti-snake venom in the hospitals. Okay? So the unjust policies that we have, the compromised institutions, and the inherited systems designed to keep you disposable, those are the evils that we need to face. We have the obas, the chiefs, the chairman, the governors, the presidents. These are colonial frameworks. These are neocolonial arrangements. These are not abstract ideas. No, they decide whether you are safe, whether you have access to education, whether you have access to quality life, whether your labor is valued, whether your life can flourish. Because have you ever sat down? Have you ever sat down and truly imagined what colonialism did to the colonized mind? Jesus. I encourage you to go read the work of Franz Fanon, Black Skin, White Mask, I suppose. And it was speaking particularly, look at the damage colonialism does to the colonized mind, and how imperialism reorganized economies to extract rather than build. And now capitalism, when detached from moral restraints, turns human beings into expendable units. These are the strongholds Paul is talking about. These are the institutions he's talking about. These are the powers that shape your destiny long before a prayer is even ever prayed. And when people fail to recognize these strongholds, something else rushes in to fill in the gap. Because the world is not created to exist in vacuum. The world is not, so the human mind should be constantly filled with something. If you fail to recognize your true enemies, that is where prosperity gospel comes in. Where they tell you that me, I no go suffer. Even Christ carried a cross. So who are you to say you don't suffer? Right. That's where prosperity gospel comes in. That is where what I call the mammonized Christianity comes in. That's why the transactional faith comes in. That's where the success theology comes in. So this movement thrives on non-recognition. They promise miracles while ignoring the structures that is weaponizing those things against the people. And they build mega churches while communities collapse. And they turn Jesus into a magician, a brand, a superstar who fixes problem without asking people to think, to organize, and to resist injustice. Even God says, come, let us reason. So this is not faith. We cannot call that faith. That is not Christianity. It is a spiritual reductionism. And it empties Christianity of reason and replaces discipleship with spectacle that we've seen today in many Protestant churches. So it keeps people, even in some Orthodox too, we see all these things happen. Broadly, like we see all these things happen. So it keeps people praying against shadows while real forces rearrange their lives without resistance. So Paul is saying here very effectively that something braver we must admit is that God will not do for you what he has given you the faculties to confront. You don't expect God to do that. So instead of blame games, face your enemies, face your reality. Reason is not opposed to faith. That's why sometimes when people say, oh, once you are a believer, you don't reason. That's not true. Reason is not opposed to faith. Responsibility should not be a lack of spirituality. So to name unjust rulers, to question harmful systems, and to resist exploitation is not a rebellion against God. It is obedience to truth. And Christians must start doing politics. Because if Christians fail to go into politics, politics will decide how their Christianity is being practiced. So, as we start this year, I want to welcome you to the year of reasoning. Do not expect the divine intervention to descend and fix what you refuse to understand. Do not spiritualize, what demands courage and clarity and action. Because the real battle that you are facing, that we are facing, is not imaginary. It's a structural battle. And until we face that, we'll keep fighting the wrong enemies and calling it faith. I hope this video speaks to somebody out there. My name is Nicholas again. To this channel, I speak about all these things. If you like what I do, click on the follow button, follow for more, and do not hesitate to drop your comments, because we keep engaging and we talk because we have to talk. We cannot leave this charlatanic atmosphere for the generations to come. We have a mandate to make our world better than we met it. So please, I'll see you again on the next one. Shalom, my people.